Good morning and welcome to my garden tour. I am Pat Burns and I am a master gardener here in Marion County, Florida. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. During our tour, this class will provide a high-level overview of the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping, in addition to some other helpful garden tips. Hopefully the class will give you some ideas for your lawn and yard. The class will take about half an hour. If you have questions during the tour, please enter them into the chat box. After class, you will receive an email with links to several University of Florida garden sites and also a link to a free 100-page book of Florida-friendly landscaping ideas. So let's get started. Are you ready to see some pretty flowers and butterflies? The first Florida-friendly principle is right plant, right place. These plants require minimal amount of water, fertilizer, and pesticides. It's important to consider plant placement because we need to consider how much light and water are needed in addition to the type of soil and drainage. A few of the plants here are black and blue salvia and pentas. The hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees just love salvia and pentas, in addition to many others. We also need to consider views from inside and outside the house and the curb appeal for people walking or driving by. The front of my house faces to the east, so I get morning sun, and the backyard faces west for full sun. Throughout my gardens, you will see plant diversity, annuals and perennials. So who knows the difference between an annual and a perennial? That's right, an annual only lives 1 year, and perennials live more than 1 year. Of course, here in Florida, there's always exceptions to the rule. If we have a mild winter, many of our annuals will continue to stay alive. You will see different plants and with different colors and different heights, different blooming times. So here's an example. Does anyone recognize this green plant? That's right, it's a poinsettia. Okay, so if I'm lucky, I will have color in December and January. The key is pinching them back in the summer so they bush out, and you can see that they're kind of bushy, and giving them a little fertilizer, and then planting them where it will be dark for 12 hours at night in the fall. Now let's look at some of the pots over here. I have several pots and yard art throughout the yard, and you'll notice those as we go. You can seasonally, change the flowers in there and put annuals for different colors depending on the time of year. The disadvantage with pots is that most need more watering, and as they tend to dry out faster. The last tip in this section is it's okay to move or transplant plants. If it isn't thriving, determine why and consider moving it to a new location. It might just need more or less sun. The best time of year to do that is early spring or fall to avoid the heat of the summer. Over here you'll see my bird feeders and bird bath. Our next principle is attracting wildlife. You will see many examples throughout my garden. Bird feeders, bird baths, water for the birds and the bees. I don't just have one or two, I have many. In addition, I have host and nectar plants throughout my yard to attract the bees, butterflies, and birds. The green plants there are agapanthus, or lilies of the Nile. They are a bulb that blooms in the late spring or early summer with a large spike with a big purple flower on top. They bloom for about 6 weeks. Now let's walk over here. It's a little bit shadier over here because there's some big trees. And we're going to look at my arbor that has a passion vine on it. And if we go up real close, you can see there is a butterfly flitting around in there. That's a zebra longwing. That's the state butterfly. And if we're lucky, we might see a chrysalis or a caterpillar. Okay, there's a chrysalis right there. not seen any caterpillars at the moment, but they're there. They're eating away. You can see the leaves have holes in them. That chrysalis will be there for about a week, and then the butterfly will hatch out of there. Oh, there's another chrysalis down here on the root of the orchids that I have hanging. Zebra longwings prefer the passion vine in the shade, and the Gulf fritillary also likes to eat on the passion vine, but they prefer the sun, so we'll see some more of these in the backyard. There's some gingers and some more agapanthus, cranberry hibiscus tree, more yard art. More pentas. There's short pentas, tall pentas, white, red, pink, purple, all kinds of different kinds. This little tree here is actually a shrub. It's a golden dewdrop that has been trimmed to become a small ornamental tree. Next to it, to the left, is the wild coffee, which thrives in the shade and is loved by pollinators. This is my favorite section. This is my memorial garden. My husband died 2 years ago, and I spent time developing that plant and planting it and developing it and having it be extra special. That's my favorite shrub. That is a Clerodendron musical note, and it's blooming just for you. It blooms 3 or 4 times a year, only for a few days, but you can see why it's called musical note. Over here is a camellia, small camellia. They love the shade, and that will bloom in the winter, so it's going to give me some pretty bright pink color in the winter time. More pots with some caladiums and a ground orchid that'll bloom in late winter. And of course more pentas. Oh, there's a little butterfly flitting through. It's a zebra longwing. That white plant there is called a cat whisker. You can see the whiskers on the plant. Over here we have my fairy garden. This is fun for kids, grandkids, and adults. This is an old fountain that was leaking and it was no longer functioning. So you can use a fountain, you can use a large pot. It can be a new pot, it can be a broken pot, it can be a plain pot, it can be a painted pot. You can do all kinds of things with it. And then add little plants and little doodad fairy items. The next principle is watering efficiently. So here's my hose. I pretty much use it to water my pots. I also have an irrigation system, but I pretty much keep that turned off in the summer unless we've had a long spell that's dry, which that's not the case right now. We've had plenty of rain lately. So I just keep my sprinklers off and Mother Nature takes care of it. Also, this is a good time to talk about mulch. That's another principle. This is pine bark mulch. This section here, this whole section we've just walked through, gets a lot of leaves coming down in the spring from the big oak trees. And I just leave them. And I put a little mulch on top to keep it from being slippery. The University of Florida recommends pine bark, melaleuca, pine straw, and leaves. A 3-inch layer will help retain moisture and suppress weeds. Another principle is recycle. You can leave, as I've said, you can leave the leaves that fall and use that as mulch. And also, don't throw your grass clippings away. Either just leave them on the grass as you mow or use the clippings for mulch. The next principle we're going to talk about is fertilizer. Over here on top of my rain barrel, I've got some examples. There's lots of different kinds of fertilizer, so it's important to do your research. Some people think if a little is good, a lot must be better, but that is actually not the case. Less is usually better. Too much fertilizer can stress and burn the plants, causing damage or death. So research what you need and use the right amount. These examples include azalea fertilizer that's good for acid-loving plants, some general fertilizer and slow-release fertilizer for regular plants and flowers and vegetables, and some houseplant fertilizer. Another principle to talk about is reduce stormwater runoff. Plan your garden and yard for proper drainage to prevent rainwater from running into the street. This is my rain barrel. I use the rainwater for my houseplants and orchids. They can be plain or you can have fun painting it. The water runs off the gutter into the barrel. Over here behind us is a large arbor. Here's another favorite shrub. If you look up above, that's lots of vines. It's called a Carolina jasmine, and this arbor is covered with this pretty green vine most of the year, and then covered with little yellow flowers in the late winter and spring. The bees love the nectar in the flowers. Also on my arbor, I hang my orchids outside in the summer. Now, I know you don't see any ponds or oceanfront beaches here, so this next principle may sound a little silly, but one of our principles is to protect the waterfront. In Florida, water is a very important resource to us. We need to protect the Florida aquifer and watersheds that run to the ocean and the Gulf. Don't use too much fertilizer. Don't dump car oil or lawnmower oil in the yard. Don't overuse pesticides and herbicides. To the left here are my hedges. These are ligustrums. These hedges can create boundaries to your yard. They're great hiding spots for birds and creating some privacy. This whole section here is a jasmine bed, which is a vine, and it spreads. I don't have to water it. Mother Nature takes care of it. When we first planted it, it was probably 6 feet in diameter. Of course, that was 20 years ago. So it's really saved a lot of mowing and watering. These two trees here are small pineapple guava trees. Unfortunately, neither of them are very straight, as they were planted 1 year before Hurricane Irma, and her winds rearranged them slightly. To my right are pentas and salvias. This is a popular place for the butterflies. I see a few lizards. I see one there's a couple little butterflies. That's a skipper. The sun's not out at the moment. If the sun was out, we'd have a lot more. But this is a popular hangout because, like I said, there's great sugar nectar in these pentas and salvias. And so the butterflies like to be here, as do the bees. More diversity. We've got a tall plant here at the corner, and that is called a goldenrod. And it just keeps getting taller and taller all summer, and then it blooms in the fall. And there's some just starting to peek out there at the back corner. And the pollinators like that too. Okay, we're going to go through the gate to the back section. And that's a Gulf fritillary flitting around there. Well, Pussy left now that we're here. These are zinnias. They're not looking particularly great, as you can tell. They were really pretty up until about 2 weeks ago when the everyday rain started, and they got a fungus. I'm leaving them because the pollinators, the butterflies and bees, will still stop by. They've still got plenty of sugar on them in the flowers, and also the flower heads will dry, the seeds will drop to the ground, and then next year I'll have more zinnias. So that's a great easy plant to put in your yard. You can just throw a handful of seeds out there, let them take off, and then next year the seeds will grow more plants. Those are coneflowers, same thing. They're not looking particularly great. A few of them are. A lot of them have gone to seed, and again, I'm letting those dry out so that we can use those either to sell seeds or in my bed or others' beds. Over here to the left, you can see the hedges have gotten a lot taller, so I've got a lot of privacy across the back. The birds love this hedge, so I've got the bird feeders and the birdhouse here. That's a birdhouse for bluebirds. Yeah, we've got a lot more flowers along here that the butterflies and bees just buzz around all day long. It's actually a good example too of your garden from inside your house. On the other side of the pool, you can see that's my family room, and my chair is right there, so I can watch all the activity out here, whether it be butterflies or birds taking a bath or bluebirds building a nest. Another little skipper, and a few bees in there buzzing around. This is bee balm. It just started blooming a couple weeks ago. It's a late summer, early fall bloomer. The bees love it. That's why they call it bee balm. There's a couple butterflies over there in the grass, flitting around. Over to our left is a pollinator bed. Across the back fence is another passion vine. We saw that earlier. This is the one that's in full sun, so the Gulf fritillaries prefer this one. So there's a couple of them flitting around over there. Most of the plants in that bed were planted from seed, and what's important when you buy seeds, if you buy them online, make sure you buy one that is for the Southeast United States, because they sell different seeds for different parts of the country. These tolerate our sun a whole lot better. So we've got some coreopsis and some cosmos, some more zinnias, little variety. Bees checking out the cosmos or the coreopsis. here in this section, I just love this little ground cover. It's called Blue Days. It spreads, it loves full sun, it's pest and disease resistant. The little ornamental tree is a shrub called the Texas senna bush, and it's the host plant for the yellow sulfur butterfly. And of course, an hour ago, before we started our tour, there was 3 of them out here flitting around. That's plumbago. That's one plant. It spreads a lot. It's pretty. It's disease resistant. You do need to keep it trimmed a little bit because it can get out of control and get a little too big. Over here we have a little project in process. Like any garden, there's always work to do, and this is another project. So we're replacing an old wooden fence that was starting to deteriorate a lot. So we're getting there. It's all, hopefully it'll be done the next day or 2. A bee house. Bees fly in there, lay their eggs, and then in the fall I'll gather those up and bring them out in the winter, late winter, and they'll hatch. In front of us is a whole bunch of milkweed with no leaves. So the caterpillars have been doing their job. These are the host plant for the monarch butterfly. I do see one caterpillar down here. He's right there. That's a monarch caterpillar. It'll take about 3 weeks and the leaves will come back on all the milkweed. And this is another golden dewdrop. It's a little bit bigger. I think probably the difference between being in the shade versus here being in the sun. The birds love the berries, and the butterflies and bees love the flowers. And there's a monarch flitting through. Here it comes again, circling around. All my neighbors love that I have all these plants because I attract all the butterflies to the whole neighborhood. So my last tip is how to get gardening help when you need it. All counties in Florida have an extension office to assist you. We are sponsored by the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Science, also called UF-IFAS, and it is a federal, state, and county partnership dedicated to developing knowledge in agriculture, human and natural resources, and the life sciences. They have employees and volunteers, such as extension agents and volunteer master gardeners, to assist you with gardening information. In the email that I will send out, there will be a link about UF Extension and how to contact us. Here in Marion County and most other counties, there are volunteer master gardeners who are available at our plant clinics and also as speakers for events such as this one. In addition, we have plant sales and seed sales throughout the year. Reach out to your local extension. We are here to help. Thanks again for joining us. I will now answer the questions in the chat box.